So there's this really, really clear moment in Jesus' life when he goes public. It's the moment when he is baptized by John the Baptist. So we're going to look at that now from the way that Matthew sees it. And this is how Matthew introduces John the Baptist. When Jesus and his family had returned from being refugees in Egypt, John the Baptist came to the wilderness around Judea, and he began speaking in public. His message was simple: turn away from the ways that you've missed God's target and turn towards God, because the kingdom of heaven is nearer than you could possibly imagine. At this point, Matthew shoves in one of his pet themes, prophecies being fulfilled. He tells us that Isaiah, the ancient prophet, wrote about John the Baptist hundreds of years earlier when he wrote, "There is a voice shouting in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord's arrival, clear the road for him." So that's John's basic message. And then when people come to him and they say, I do want this, I'm ready, help me be ready to see God, he baptizes them in the Jordan River. The word baptize is a word that we're really familiar with now, and it's got a ton of stuff that goes with it. Like there's probably a baby, maybe it's a church, maybe a party. But actually, when John uses it, he is speaking to adults in the wilderness. And he's using a word which means to plunge down into or be immersed into something. It's like this revolutionary change, this public commitment to be different. And the image John's buying into is being reborn and being rewashed. The symbol of baptism is like going down under the water into your own death, being buried, having the water clean you and wash you, and then you come up out of the water, and symbolically, you've now been reborn as a new person. So they're coming out to John in the middle of nowhere. Loads and loads of them are getting baptized by him. I mean, we're talking hundreds of people. But awkwardly, John seems to be doing all of this off his own back. But there's no religious group that have commissioned him or asked him to do this. There's no temple teachers have agreed it's okay. He's just doing it because God said. And that makes people very nervous. So obviously the religious groups that are around at the time, they're getting offended by what John's doing. And they're sending teams of people out to check him out. Some of them are trying to find something about him they can use to discredit him, to make others think that he's, some kind of crackpot. Plus, if people are going out to John the Baptist, it means they're losing their own disciples. Just like today, it's so easy for us to get into our own kingdom building wars, where if someone goes to follow another leader or joins another church group, somehow we've lost that person. Or this massive sense of competition between church groups or church denominations. It was the same then and it's the same now. But John, he's onto them. And he doesn't mince his words. He shouts over to them in front of everyone, "You are a brood of vipers. Who warned you to avoid the fury that's about to come to you?" And it's a really dark thing for him to say, because at the time there was folklore around that viper babies, while they were still inside their mother snake, they literally ate their way out of their mother, killing the mum in the process so that they could be born. So what he's actually shouting to them is, you are snakes who are trying to keep your own place here by murdering the faith heritage that you came out of. And then he carries on. He says this: it's not enough for you to claim to be Jewish based on your family tree. God could make children for himself out of the rocks that we're standing on. You need to prove that you've turned to face God with the way you live. Listen, he says, God's grabbing an axe and he is looking at your life and he is poised, ready to chop you down unless your life demonstrates this different way to live. He is going to chop you down and he's going to throw you into the fire. It's so harsh. Let's just pause there for a moment. It is easy, isn't it, to look at other people, particularly to look at the super religious leaders who are in this story, who are there to try and catch John out and see them as like blind, bad, because we know who the good guys are in the story, don't we? We know John the Baptist is actually the good guy. But How many of us today try to stake our own spiritual safety on things that other people have done on our behalf, or even the way that we might have been, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago? John the Baptist's first reality check for us all is that what God is after is a personal, ongoing decision to turn our heart to face God and change the way we live, to stop going our own way, make God the focus. Forgive me, God, help me to live your way. Now, if we were to read Luke's version of this story, we find very helpfully John shouts all kinds of stuff to everyday people like us. He shouts, listen, if you've got 2 coats, give one away to someone with no coats. If you've got extra food, then give it to someone who can't make ends meet. If you're rich and powerful, then stop using your money and your power to get your way. Stop walking all over people. Don't bully people. Treat people as if they're equal with you. Be content with what you have. Stop trampling over people so that you can be the first and the best in everything. That's what John the Baptist thinks it looks like to have done that 180-degree turn and now be facing God. Anyway, back to Matthew. So, Matthew has told the religious leaders, God's got his axe out and he's about to chop you down and burn you. And then, with that image in their minds, he says another mysterious phrase which is going to bring us right into who Jesus is and why he arrived. Are you ready? John the Baptist announces this: I am baptizing you, plunging you into water, but there's someone right on your doorstep coming soon who is so much greater than I am. I mean, I'm not even worthy to bend down and do his sandals up, but he's on the way. And when the curtain goes up on him, he is going to baptize people as well, but he's not going to baptize with water. No, he's going to baptize with the Spirit of God and with fire. Yes, he's going to look at all of us as if we're wheat in a field that's just been harvested. He's going to get the head of the wheat off the body of the wheat. He's going to gather up the wheat that's useful into his barn, and those people will be baptized in God's Holy Spirit, as in surrounded by, plunged into the Spirit of God. But the parts that are not wheat are going to be gathered up and they're going to be baptized with eternal fire. Wow! Now this is really, really important. Matthew, the writer, specifically wants us to know that the way John the Baptist wants us all to get ready for Jesus' arrival on planet Earth is to turn back to God, know Jesus, and then be flooded, immersed with God's Spirit himself. Of all the things John could have told us, or God could have prepared us for, there is a focus on people being plunged into the Spirit of God that's going to be the marker of Jesus' time here on earth. Then to nail all that down, Jesus finally arrives. He is baptized by John, and as he comes up out of the water after his baptism, we see like there's a membrane that separates the spiritual world we can't see and the scientific measurable world we can see all around us. That membrane is ripped apart, and God's Spirit flies down like a dove and settles on Jesus, a sign to everyone around that God's Spirit really is with him. And that's powerful stuff, you know? The fabric of reality is splitting open, and we can see through to heaven as Jesus is being baptized. And then it goes even further. There's a voice from heaven, God's voice himself. According to Matthew, this voice speaks to everyone who's there about who Jesus is. And the voice says this: "This is my Son, who I love with everything I have. He brings me such incredible joy." There we are! As if the sky ripping apart to reveal the hidden, unseen world and the Spirit appearing as a dove to sit on Jesus isn't enough, there's a voice announcing to everyone they need to take note who Jesus is. Let's pause here too. If the marker of Jesus being present in our lives, according to John the Baptist, is that we are surrounded by God's Spirit, what do you think that would actually look like? Have you experienced that? And it feels like those two things need to go hand in hand. Firstly, the 180-degree turn to say, God, you're my boss. I'm sorry for the way I've been living, which looks like us standing up for the weak bringing equality, being content with what we have, treating people with respect, fighting for justice, bringing peace, looking after each other. And secondly, as we do that, at the same time as we do this, that God makes a way for us to be filled up, plunged into, immersed in God's Spirit. And this looks like us changing to be like God. It looks like us growing His characteristics, feeling His power, growing in supernatural gifts, feeling close to God, feeling that we have been cleaned out from the inside and forgiven. We feel peace and joy. I mean, Jesus coming into the world is a pretty massive thing to happen. And this is just the preparation for His life. So may we know what it means to turn to God, to turn our backs on the way that we have been living, and to turn our hearts to be open to God, leading us, guiding us, directing us, challenging us, work in our lives and our lifestyle and our speech, our love, our relationships, our business practices, everything. May we know what it means to be baptized into God's Holy Spirit. May we feel God directing us and developing us and empowering us, filling us, transforming us. And finally, that image of baptism as being washed clean and reborn. May we know more and more what that means for us personally. May we live up to this new reality that we've been invited to be part of when we were cleaned up on the inside. And now we live with God all around us.